Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is May the 15th, and we are rolling live here on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. You are strangely watching Kyle Seraphin, the host of the show. Folks, I am not plural. I am not more than one FBI agent or former FBI agent or recovering FBI agent, as Sheila says in our intro. I'm happy if you guys have joined us. If you're new to the show, we want to say thanks for joining us here. If you are not watching on Rumble, what are you doing? Come on over. The water is fine. You can like the video here. You can subscribe. You can notify yourself. And you can see the live chat has been going since far before my ability to get into it. You guys get here early and turn on the lights for me. I love it. We've got Eric Jason moderating. We've got Rose Lopez, who is also keeping things under control. And that is the link right there. Just go to rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin and join us. If you're watching on X, if you're watching on YouTube, if you happen to be on Facebook, I don't think you are. But if you are, come on over and see us. Today, we're going to be talking about something that may be known as diabolical lies. I had this concept in my head of diabolical lies as I woke up this morning. And I don't know why. I don't know why it stuck with me. I've been watching a bunch of different videos on social media, things popping up, a lot of it with the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker, who's talked about diabolical lies. And for some reason, that phrase stuck in my head. And it reminded me of this, which I'm probably going to play you a couple times.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Right? There's some truth in that. I remember that movie from my, teenage years. This is The Usual Suspects. That's Kevin Spacey before he had fallen from grace. The greatest trick that the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. And we're living in that time right now. I also remember this quote that I couldn't remember where it came from. It ends up being something that Mark Twain said, but Mark Twain said it and he was quoting somebody else. He says it in his autobiography, I think. And he says that there are three types of lies. There are lies, there are damned lies, and there are statistics. I think you could substitute diabolical lies and damned lies. I think those are the same thing. Damned lies would be lies that damn you, are they not? Which would be diabolical. All right, we're going to talk about those things. You're going to see how this all weaves together. We're going to discuss the Cohen situation, the fact that he's been still testifying. I want to nail down some of the very important pieces that I think Vivek Ramaswamy called into stark relief in a very, very short statement. Sometimes people say it better than anybody else. He seems to be the guy that nailed it. So I want to put that out there for you all. We're going to talk a little bit more about the dog situation. We're going to actually talk about lies and then damned or diabolical lies and then even statistics today. I think all those are going to come into play. We'll lastly finish up with this Inspector General report that popped out showing that the Justice Department's got a problem. And luckily, our watchdog group is not going to do anything about it. The Suspendables have been right from the beginning, for whatever that's worth to you all. Now, let's see. We'll go ahead and start off by just saying thanks to our friends and sponsors, Patriot Coolers, patriotcoolers.com. Mine is filled with water right now. I have already taken the requisite dose of caffeination, and I am now going into hydration. If you want to get a cup to hydrate, it is the summer, especially here in Texas. It's already hot. You guys are going to want to check out the 20 or the 32-ounce tumblers that you see on the screen. You can customize them with Suspendables logos. Mine are shipped. I actually bought some for Steve, and I bought some for Garrett O'Boyle. Pray for Garrett. He's in the hospital right now, just getting checked out. But we want to pray that he has a quick recovery, that he's okay. We'll talk more about that another time. Check out patriotcoolers.com, promo code Kyle, Kyle. Those guys are going to be sporting theirs the next time you see them on their program and probably on mine. Patriotcoolers.com, promo code Kyle for 10% off, free shipping over $50. Just get two. Get one for you and one for someone you love. We're going to be talking about someone that you love today as well. All right, and let's get right into it. Let's get right into it's the lies first, not the diabolical lies. So, you're seeing CNN, which I always go and try to see what are they about? What's CNN got going on? What is sort of the left center of the political aisle talking about? And they're talking about Trump's allies flocked to Manhattan Courthouse to show support and curry favor with the former president. Is that what's going on? Yeah, show support. I think that's the right thing. Curry favor? Maybe. But what this really tells me is, those of you who have been listening to Dan Bongino's show for the last couple days, he has been saying aggressively that Republicans need to show support right now. They need to step in and be at that courtroom. There needs to be someone, a notable figure from the Republican Party behind Donald Trump every single day. You're seeing J.D. Vance on the screen right now. Trump kind of blurred out in the front. Vivek was there, a couple of others. We had Mike Johnson show up. All of these people are showing support. I don't know if they're trying to curry favor or not. I don't think that's what's necessary here. What's important is showing that this prosecution in Manhattan of a former president doesn't make him out of bounds for the mainstream political piece of the Republican Party and for conservatives more broadly. We cannot say that, oh, because he's sitting in there, like there's this big instinct that once somebody falls into the legal system, that it's kind of like, well, this is beyond our control. I think Donald Trump is shattering that sort of instinct that people have. And I think that's a good thing, because these are absolutely terrible prosecutions. They're so weak. We've seen them. Some of them have been suspended. They're not going to be able to be heard before the election. I think that's a good thing. This is a failed attempt to discredit the man. And you know that because every single left-wing media outlet will constantly say, Donald Trump is rising in the polls, in spite of the fact that he is now facing all these criminal prosecutions. He's a very, very bad guy. And it's because the credibility that they have is shot, which we all agree with. But there is still a patina of credibility that exists in the legal system. They're doing their best. The mainstream media, the political left, the political prosecutors that are bringing these cases, they're all doing their best to discredit themselves and get rid of that patina of legitimacy. And they're doing it on a daily basis. And now they're actually going to get worse, because you're seeing people who do have legitimacy, who do have standing on the conservative side. They're standing up, like you see J.D. Vance on this picture. They're out there showing support and letting people know that, hey, we're not abandoning this guy. And you know that I'm not like a big rah-rah Trump guy. You're never going to get the Trump pom-poms here on this show. But I am going to cut it fair. At least what I believe is fair. I'm going to be as fair as I know how to be. And these are awful. The optics of it are so awful. I want to play... First, I'm going to read a little bit from this story. I've also got another piece that comes from Stephen Collinson, who I always get a kick out of reading because he's the analytical end of the CNN main page. And he's got some pretty funny stuff to say. Specifically his call to action, which is, it's like he's giving a sermon, or he is hoping beyond hope that he can convince people. And this CNN main page is probably what jurors in New York City are reading. It's certainly what's going to be popping up on the screens in FBI skiffs. So people in government in Washington, D.C. are all seeing the same sort of things. Let's just kind of dig into this piece just a little bit. Like I said, they're concerned that there's a show of support. This is what's supposed to happen. You absolutely know that Democrats would not leave their person behind if they were facing political prosecutions. So it just starts off, several of Donald Trump's allies are flocking to this Manhattan criminal courthouse. They underlined Manhattan criminal courthouse, by the way, just so you can't see it on the screen, but that's what's going on. Where Trump is on trial to display their support for the former president as explosive testimony unfolds about his alleged sexual encounters with an adult film actress and the hush money payments made to keep it under wraps between the 2016 election. Is that what this case is really about? It's about hush money payments and it's about sexual encounters? Because that's what the court has made it about. That's what the prosecutors are trying to bring up. It turns out that's not what this case is supposed to be about. There's supposed to be an underlying crime. That's why falsifying business records in aid of another crime is the issue. And we haven't put too fine a point on it on this show yet. But what is that crime? And is it a federal election crime? Because that's where it would fall. And why did the Federal Election Commission not prosecute it? Because it's garbage. If they could charge him with that underlying crime, they would have done so. We know that. It's the same reason why if they could charge Donald Trump with insurrection, they would do it. Instead, what they did is they charged him with conspiracy against rights. Conspiracy against something that doesn't seem like it happened because he's not sitting in the office. I really don't like conspiracy charges. I think they're a major problem. They're good for the government. They're bad for the people because they are, by their very nature, pre-crime. The only time I'm ever comfortable with the idea of quote unquote conspiracy. Imagine a conspiracy to rob a federal bank, for example. Conspiracy to engage in that. It would involve you have your mask on, you have your weapons, you have a crew that is in a car, like some kind of movie, like watching like a Guy Ritchie film, and you're en route to the bank, and somebody tips off that there's going to be a robbery that day, someone who bailed out of the crew, let's say, who was part of the conspiracy, and they drop out, and you're interrupted en route to the bank, maybe even getting out of the car on the way to the bank. I would say that there was a conspiracy to rob the bank. The police just foiled it. So maybe you didn't get a chance to rob the bank. That's the only time I'm comfortable with the idea of a conspiracy. Before that, it's people talking. They're engaging in their First Amendment liberties to discuss ideas, some of which may be confusing and concerning. You remember our founding fathers conspired to throw off the yoke of the British crown. Until they did something about it, it was just talk. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't have been in trouble. There's probably a pretty good reason why that First Amendment liberty and our right to assemble and petition for redress of grievances is actually enshrined in that First Amendment. The Anti-Federalists were right. In any case, the courtroom has become a backdrop for potential vice president auditions. This is the argument they're making. You've got the North Dakota governor. You've got a Ohio senator. Blah, blah, blah. You got Vivek, you got Mike Johnson. All these people are they're all trying to become vice president, apparently. That's the auditions. That's the claim that's being made. I don't think so. I think Vivek's take is actually correct. What they're doing is they're showing how absurd and illegitimate what's going on in New York is. And you do that by bringing as much attention. Plus, it's free publicity. People talk about how Donald Trump is not on the campaign trail because he's dealing with all these court cases. It turns out they've made the campaign trail right in front of that courthouse in Manhattan. He's able to hold a press conference twice a day. So he's out there campaigning. He's just using mass media. You guys, one of you found the quote or the clip talking about, oh, brother, we're out there that I was referencing the other day. And it's classic. It's like, how are we going to be the reform candidate when we're the damned incumbent? And that's true. But the other thing he says is, we're not out here trying to influence people onesie-twosie. We're mass communicating. And Donald Trump is mass communicating on the steps of a court. He's taken the platform they've given him and he's using it to great effect. And so are men like this. There were a couple of good speeches that were done setting up the political implications. I think Vivek actually goes broader and does a great job. So I'm going to start with that right now. Let's listen to what he has to say. You're not going to be hurting for hearing this. This is coming from Fox News.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues, Governor Burgum, Congressman Mills, and Congressman Donalds for laying out the political backdrop here. This is a politicized persecution that is nakedly apparent. What I want to do is dive a little bit deeper into what we actually learned today in that courtroom. What do we see in there? First of all, I learned a lot from being in there in person. It is one of the most depressing places I have been in my life, but it is fitting because the only thing more depressing than the environment of that courtroom is what's actually happening in there. It's straight out of a Kafka novel. The prosecution's main strategy appears to be to bore the jurors into submission. And if you look in that direction, sadly, it may appear to actually be working. Now, I would like for anybody here in the press, anybody at home, anybody in MSNBC or the media afterwards, to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed. Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague until today. You heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours, of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial, you had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican operative. What would you all be saying? This would not be justice. This is injustice at its worst. So let's go even a layer deeper, right? Because let's go even a layer deeper, actually. The alleged crime here is supposedly, they try to point to this every day, that he does not actually use campaign funds, that he used personal funds. Well, let's get this straight. Suppose Donald Trump had used campaign funds to make a personal expense. They'd be going after him for that. So if they're going to get him going or they're going to get him coming, that is the best proof that this is a politicized sham. Let's go through it piece by piece. If you tell somebody to go buy you a suit and you want to look good on television because that'll affect the voters, the way voters vote for you, you know what? They prosecute politicians if they use campaign funds to buy a suit. If they say, go get a haircut, if you use campaign funds to get a haircut because you want to look good to the voters, they will actually prosecute you for using campaign funds for a personal expense. Yet the entire legal theory of this case, the whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought, depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment. Yet if he had done that, their case against him would be even stronger. This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him going or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Did he just say you're gonna get him Cohen? That's kind of funny. Almost a little slip there. If you guys don't know how good Vivek Ramaswamy is in person, I encourage you at some point to see and speak with him. He'll take anybody up. He'll handle the questions that are brought without being vetted. He does a really, really good job of this. I spent some time with him in New Hampshire and saw him, just a couple of feet away. He had people that were open carrying weapons, which you'll never see presidential candidates, people who are trying to run for the highest office in this country. You're not going to see them walking around with dudes who are like strapped or slinging rifles, but that's how they roll at Pork Fest, which is a really, really weird experience in many levels. And he was out there with a bunch of dudes just hanging out, open carrying. I very much like his style. I don't know that he's the best, but he's very, very sharp. And you can tell how intelligent he is by the way that he addresses completely novel questions or people coming from the blue. He just manhandles these people. And he just manhandled the fact pattern that is supposed to be underlying this case. That's number one. Number two, Michael Cohen also the prosecutors did, tapes that Michael Cohen generated of him talking, supposedly in confidence, with the person that he has a fiduciary duty, a attorney-client privilege. He has a responsibility to protect that secret conversation. We have a few things that are fairly sacrosanct in our judicial system. An attorney-client privilege is very important. I don't know that he broke a law by recording his client, but he's certainly going to be disbarred. Like, he's definitely lost all of his credibility. How are you going to look at that guy? And what's even crazier is the ethics that it takes for prosecutors to put that guy on the stand, knowing that he's broken every ethic that their profession supposedly holds up. And why? Why was he doing it? Because he thought he might not get it? Because he was such a distrustful, rat bastard, as someone just said in the chat? Is that how he is? He's just that evil of a person that he was taping every conversation just in case he needed to use it for leverage later? That's kind of mafiosa type techniques. It turns out like that's actually government gangster type techniques. But even the government's a little bit more transparent about it. At least they know what they are targeting for investigations, generally speaking. Really ugly and really weird. I want to bring this thing up because this is the defense tactic that's being done. Here's a lie. This is another in the category of lies. Defense tactics raise eyebrows in Cohen cross-examination. Defense tactics are they're raising eyebrows? Are you kidding me right now? You brought a guy on who's been convicted of perjury, who's admitted to telling lies in front of Congress, who is disgraced in his profession, and they're going to call that stuff out. That's all they have to do. All the defense job is to discredit this witness who was not credible to begin with. And that's raising eyebrows. This is coming again from Stephen Colson, again, CNN's main page. These are the two things that I want to cover from that. It would be no surprise if the jury in Donald Trump's first criminal trial, again, they're going to hammer this home, this criminal piece, now sees his former fixer, Michael Cohen, as a profane social media troll and vengeful liar who dreams of seeing his boss he once worshipped behind bars. Yeah, fact check, that's true. Those things are all accurate statements. But the jurors, here's where he's preaching to them. But jurors don't have to like Cohen. They just have to believe him. I almost want the word have in bold and in all caps. They have to believe him because we need him to make this case, which is garbage. That's what Collison is pushing forward here. He goes on to talk about how his behavior was really ugly and his credibility has been a little bit questioned, that he didn't lose his composure, so he didn't fall into the traps that the defense came, because he's a seasoned lawyer and he's a seasoned dirtbag. All this stuff, it's like they're going to hammer home again that there's money and there's adult film stars and there's all these scandalous, lurid affairs, and they want to talk about sex in a hotel and rah, rah, rah. All that stuff has to be punched out there because, as Vivek just said, where on earth is the underlying crime that they were going to get him for? It's so weak. It's such a weak catch-22 that all you have is this guy. And interestingly, I think, he can't even get out of his own way because he's so spiteful and so vengeful that he's been running around on social media, mostly on TikTok, running these live streams for an hour a day. And he's a nut. He's an absolute nut. CNN tried to carry some water for him as well on their main programs. I'm going to play that in 1 second. But the best is that they basically just went through his social media and then they just asked questions like, hey, did you call Trump a boorish cartoon misogynist? That sounds like something I would say. Did you call him a Cheeto-dusted cartoon villain? Yeah, probably. I don't know. So all the things, he's given them all the ammo. There's no eye-raising being done here. The tactic is simply using the guy's words, just in the way that if you were to put me on a criminal stand at this point, now that I've been doing this for over a year, and there are hundreds, if not thousands of hours of me speaking, you could go through it and find some things that I've said that would upset people, that would discredit me to a juror in some areas. I wouldn't make a great witness at this point. I've had a lot to say, and I'm very opinionated, and I have no leash on me because no one controls me. Cohen's doing the same thing, except he's being used as a tool of the government. And Alvin Bragg is out there trying to get things going on. The guy is a totally imperfect vessel to pin all your hopes on. They pin their hopes on a guy who was convicted of perjury, who served jail time for it, who served prison time, and then also a porn star who claimed that she was so traumatized by having sex with Donald Trump that she couldn't even remember how she got there, when in fact she is a person that has sex with people for a living and takes off her clothes and dances around on poles and does all these sort of like sexual shows all around the country, that she's been campaigning on it. She's been making money off the fact that she claimed that she had sex with Donald Trump. That's what she does. What an awful case. This is a stinking pile of garbage. So here you go. This is CNN carrying water for it, and a little surprise appearance by Rosie O'Donnell. My wife and I had this little, I got to just share this out. We had this little conversation about Rosie O'Donnell this morning. They describe her in this clip as a comedian. And I was like, is Rosie O'Donnell really a comedian? And if so, is she funny? Has she ever been funny? Can anybody tell me something funny that Rosie O'Donnell has done or been in? Like, maybe there's something I don't remember. I think she was in, was she in Bridesmaids? Or is it just a chick that looks like Rosie O'Donnell? I don't know when Rosie O'Donnell was funny. I was thinking of people that I don't like on the political left that were famous for being comedians and then they have more commentary. Sarah Silverman, she's absolutely hilarious. I don't like a lot of her takes, but she is very, very funny. Amy Schumer, I don't like very much at all, but she has some moments that are pretty funny, and I've seen her do comedy, and some of it is at least mildly interesting. Ellen DeGeneres, who has a show and is a talk show host, she's a comedian, and she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. You don't have to like her personal takes on a lot of things, but when you listen, her comedy is actually wholesome, which is very hard to do. It hits on a lot of different levels. It feels very familiar to people. For a lesbian woman in her, late 40s or 50s, that should have very little to do with me, I smile a lot when I watch her stand-up comedy. She's good. I don't know what Rosie O'Donnell did that made her like that. So I just want to share that right up front. I don't know how she's a comedian. Here's CNN carrying the water and a little taste of some of the TikTok lives that you and I are not watching.
Not a good day for Donald in New York.
The man who, almost on a whim, would threaten to destroy people's lives has been routinely opining on TikTok recently. Former Trump attorney turned adversary Michael Cohen has been hosting a live stream on TikTok almost every night.
Don't be that person that sits on the sideline and has to turn around and say to your kids or your grandkids, I should have voted.
Cohen told the court today he goes on TikTok an hour a night to build an audience and create a community, he says, but also, quote, to really vent because I'm having a difficult time sleeping, so I found an outlet. He riffs on everything from books to sports to politics, including a tease on a potential run for office.
I'm telling you, I may run for Congress. I may do it even if I don't get the blessing of my wife and kids.
Comedian Rosie O'Donnell recently called in to Cohen's TikTok stream, saying she wanted to give him a pep talk.
To not listen to all of this negative MAGA coming at you. What you lied about were things that he made you do. And you have made a full turnaround in terms of telling the truth.
But Cohen's TikTok talks.
You have made a full turnaround in terms of telling the truth because you're telling the thing that I want you to tell. You're just doing the good in the world. Don't worry about the MAGAs. Like, no, you're just a bad piece of garbage. Just accept that. Also, what was she singing? She was in a choir right there? What kind of choir is that? Very weird. All right, we're going to move on from the Cohen trial. I think it's been covered a ton. I'm not real crazy about it, but I do think Vivek summed it up in a way that was worth playing today. And I do think it falls in the category of lies. We're going to get into some of the diabolical lies, which I think are much more insidious and much more evil in 1 second here. Before we do that, I'm going to say you guys can support our program and support your own health with a quality product from matthatjerky.com/Kyle. Matt, 2 T's, hat, 1 T, jerky.com/Kyle. Yeah, this is the one that I'm holding in reserve right now. This is a 6 ounce. It's still bigger than the bag that comes in the sample pack. This is the gourmet flank. That's a USDA prime dehydrated beef with roasted garlic. It's super tasty. That umami flavor is very good. It's tender, and it is an outstanding product. Promo code Kyle, Kyle, will get you 20% off your first order there. And then if you do a subscription, you will get 20% off for any future one. And they tag it back to us. We still get credit for your orders if you do that, I think for the first couple months. So by all means, go in to the website with that /Kyle at the end, matthatjerky.com/Kyle. Use the promo code Kyle. It should be auto-populated for you, KYLE at checkout. And get yourself a great snack so you're not eating garbage during the day as you're sitting out there. All right, let's talk about a little thing. I love when Donald Trump just says something that is just like perfectly encapsulated how little something is. The other day, and a lot of you have responded to this, by the way, my take on the dog situation with Kristi Noem. A lot of you know that have lived in rural areas. Like I said, I've got videotapes of me sitting on a pole barn at 2 a.m. when it was 20 degrees outside New Mexico, shooting what are essentially dogs. They're called coyotes or coyotes. But we were shooting them with a thermal scope, which is not fair. We were shooting them because they destroy livelihood of livestock and my friend's source of feeding himself and his family. And that's what you do. And it's like, does it feel good to shoot a dog? No, it feels terrible. Nobody gets excited about it unless you're a sociopath. And yet sometimes it needs to be done. So pretty good stuff. I love Trump's response. It's perfectly dismissive of something that doesn't matter. What's really crazy is this article. I don't know why I have 3 CNNs right up front, but I did. This is where I was covering this morning. Trump responded to the backlash over Noem killing her dog. He said, hey, we all have bad weeks. We all have a bad week. He's correct. He's kind of having a rough time right now. I think he can empathize. He said she had a bad week. We all have very bad weeks. It happens. He says it on the Clay and Buck show on an interview from Tuesday. Totally reasonable. He's exactly right. Couple of rough stories, no question. He says sometimes when you're writing a book, somebody ghostwrites it, you don't read it as carefully as you should, then they put that stuff in there. I guarantee this was all part of some big interview and it was telling a bigger piece. But CNN really hones in on the fact that the dog was a puppy, which I love. It was like a 14-month-old dog. That's more than a year old. I mean, it may still be puppy-like, but that's a full-size dog, particularly what she was talking about. In any case, they asked the Biden family or the Biden spokespeople, a campaign spokesperson named James Singer for the Biden campaign, who said this, quote, at the Biden campaign, we are proudly anti-puppy killing, and I don't think those who murder puppies are terrific, because that's what he said. That's what Trump said. He said, she's terrific. She's done a great job. She's just having a bad week. Those are all true things. You know what's interesting? We're anti-puppy killing here, but they're pro-baby killing at the Biden campaign. They want to run everything based on the lens of, can we just get more abortion in this country and can we fund it federally? That's kind of a hot take. And it's one of those weird things in our modern world. I would call this a diabolical lie, where we have people that believe that their animals are as important as people. There's these social media polls that I keep seeing, and there'll be weird stuff that'll be like, if you see, if you're stuck in a room on fire and you can only carry one person, by the way, that's a false dichotomy, but if you're stuck in a room and it's on fire and you can only carry out a complete stranger or your dog, who are you carrying out? The fact of the matter is, lift more, be a man. I'm speaking to men specifically. Carry both of them out. What the hell's wrong with you? Figure it out. Throw one out the window and throw, whatever. I don't know. Figure out how to carry more than one person and a dog. But I can carry all 3 of I think I can carry all 4 of my kids at once. I'd like to do that challenge. I'll get a picture of it. We'll black out their eyes or something. I guarantee you I could pick them all up and my wife can just run on her own. But if you had to choose a stranger or your dog, you choose a stranger because human life is inherently more valuable. It's always more valuable. If only for the fact that person who may be absolutely awful needs a moment to live longer, to repent for any kind of sins. How about that? In any case, you've also got this little piece on here. They're talking about the Biden, the presidential dog Commander, who in 24, I think I misquoted the other day, 24 separate incidents has bitten Secret Service personnel. That dog gets put down in any other place. Any other place. But let's just affirm in this show, if you're listening here, it is my position that we can all enjoy having pets and we can think that they're important. I used to think that my dog was more important than people. That's why you have to have children, it turns out, because that's a really, really bad take. I used to think that when I was in my 20s. My wife and I, before we got married, we had this dog. We still have her. She's like 1,000 years old right now. She's barely walking around. And what's funny is the dog goes from being number one. It's like me and my wife and, or girlfriend at the time, or fiance, and then wife, and then boom, and then the dog is right underneath it. That was the second most important person in our world. And then you have children, and the dog goes, like one child, the dog goes from rank number 2 to rank number 6, because it's like you, wife, then the kid, then the kid, then the kid. There's no room to compare having a child and a person in your life and having a dog. And it's so important that we have kids have skin in the game like that to actually realize the real truth. The diabolical lie being sold is that, in fact, these animals are as valuable as you. And then you get this whole concept, I'm a dog parent. No, you're not. You didn't give birth to this animal. Give me a break. You're a steward of God's creation. That's an important role. But it also means that you may have to make a hard decision. And I think that's worth doing. Let's talk about some more damned lies, because these ones are really wild. CBS has an entire section, CBS News, which I would say is kind of like masquerading as being down the middle. They masquerade as it. They're still leaning to the left, but center left-ish. They have an entire section called Election 2024. I'm going to give you a little taste of this. I keep telling you that the Biden administration, that the campaign that they are running is basically white supremacy / racism is all over the place. We need to have an open border. They need abortion for all, right? And Donald Trump is very, very bad. This is like a snapshot. These are, of the probably 15 headlines, I'm going to show you 8 of them, and they're pretty impressive. So you're seeing up here, Joe Biden. The Biden campaign ramps up its outreach pitch, to black voters in Wisconsin. Okay. On the other side of the coin, Donald Trump says he'd leave abortion to the states, but if he's reelected, could he still try to limit it? Is he trying to stop our abortions? Then you go back over here, Biden's side, Congressional Black Caucus chairman on Biden's efforts to appeal to black voters, because we have to do everything about racial and identity politics. Trump is definitely, they've definitely delayed the classified documents trial. They want to remind you that it's happening, even though it's not going to happen until after the election. And then black men in Georgia were key for Biden's election in 2020. Can he keep their support? Probably not. Probably not, because there's nothing masculine about Joe Biden. How about these? There's a bunch more headlines on there too. I'm telling you, it's all about abortion to them, and the pro-tranny LGBTQIA piece. That's the other end of it. So white supremacy, LGBTQIA stuff, abortion, and then Donald Trump is very, very bad. Got to have the open border, blah, blah, blah. All right. Democrats seek to make GOP candidates pay for threats to reproductive rights. They don't even want to say abortion until later. They'll call it abortion access, but not actually abortion, right? Democrats are going to make them pay for their threats. Okay, so there you've got that little piece. There's a man who's speaking very passionately in favor of abortion, apparently. Why is it always men like that? And like real harpy women. Abortion access defines key congressional races in New York. And then 3 GOP candidates in West Virginia try to outdo each other on anti-LGBTQ issues. You think that the transgender, lesbian, bisexual, gay, whatever issues are like a really big deal in West Virginia? I don't know how much time you guys have spent in West Virginia. I spent a little bit of time. If you go to the towns, I would suggest to you that they are not issues at all, and that people just want to see their girls be able to compete against girls in like their middle school shot put, like we saw the other day. But if you go into some of the cities, I went into a city. Man, what the hell city was it? We were on a surveillance trip where I was following somebody, a January 6th person that we had got sent to follow, only to find out that they had been tracking that person with a tracker on their car, and they endangered my team unnecessarily driving through the middle of the night when we'd been up all day and then up all night. But anyway, we go and we pull in. I can't remember. It was deep in the middle of the state. It was towards the western half, and I went to go buy a coffee en route to come home because I was driving home, and they told me you need a mask on, and I was like, I'm not wearing a mask. And they were like, well, you can't stand up. You can't stand up. You can sit down at the table and have coffee, but you can't stand up with your coffee, and you can't stand up and wait for your coffee. You must sit down over there. And, it was the classic like college town, coffee workers, barista types that were pushing this thing out there. And it's like, I don't need an incident because I'm already tired and I'm an armed federal agent in this place. I didn't need to have any of that nonsense, but there probably are some people that care about LGBTQIA plus nonsense in the cities in West Virginia. Even West Virginia has to deal with this garbage, unfortunately. Anyway, it's just kind of fun. These are the things that the CBS wants you to know about the election. If you click on Election 2024 and you want to get the real hard-hitting coverage of just what's fair and balanced, that's what it is. That's what it's about. That's what they're going to kind of push home. Again, they're worried about race. While we're talking about the political race, I want to say something about Catholic Vote real quick. So you guys, you can support them at catholicvote.org. You can get the loop. There's a really neat little article in here. It's a headline that just says, Hispanic voters are set to deliver Nevada for Donald Trump. Widely respected Nevada-based political journalist sounded the alarm for the Democratic Party. Trump is up 9 points with Hispanics. They're trying to do this identity politics thing continually, and I think it's starting to actually backfire on them because their candidate is so bad. If you guys want to get more news and lots of really good stuff in there, short little stories that you can share with your friends and family, and also some of the cool podcasts, which we are doing over there as well. The new Between the Lines, we just taped it yesterday, so that'll be out either Thursday or Friday. CatholicVote.org is where you go, and you can follow them all the social media channels at Catholic Vote. If you're watching on YouTube, that's where you'll catch them. They just broke 100,000 subscribers, so by all means, go there. And if you're watching on Rumble, be one of the followers there. If you're following me on Rumble, follow Catholic Vote over there and see the stuff we're dropping. We spend a lot of time on it. I think it's a really good product. It's short. It's like less than 10 minutes. It's very shareable if you were so interested. CatholicVote.org is where you go. And again, it's rumble.com/Catholic Vote if you're watching on Rumble. While I say that, let's just go ahead and tell you, chat's still going. I see you guys rolling. We got Rose throwing the Catholic Vote Get the Loop in the chat right there. Really appreciate that. Make sure you have subscribed to our channel here on Rumble if you're following. Make sure you've hit the thumbs up in the middle of it. It actually does make a big difference. Even when I go over to Bongino's channel, even though I do this for a living, I always forget. And so somebody on the chat will be like, hey, have you hit the like button yet? And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go like it. Throw those likes out there. We do appreciate it. It actually drums up. It shows the organic engagement that we have with the audience. And you guys are the reason we're here. And you guys are the best. So thanks so much. Again, let's keep pushing forward, okay? Because I want to talk about what I think are the damned lies, the really diabolical lies. And they're out there. And they're ugly. And this is one of them. I could not believe this. This came from ABC's main page today. And it's so strange to read something like this. This is written by someone called Arthur Jones. The story you're seeing on there is, that's an advertisement. I was like, why is that lady taking a picture of herself? Okay. Resistance to Brown school desegregation decision, quote unquote, purged black male educators, experts say, attributed to quote unquote experts. And you're going like, Brown school, what in the world? The Supreme Court decision of Brown v. Board of Education turned 70. It was handed down in 1954, before my mother was born. My father was a child. He was like kindergarten age or before that. That's when the Brown v. Board decision came down in this country to end racial segregation in American public schools. And so this week, that decision is 70 years old. And it's always been heralded, according to them, it's the anniversary is being marked as a major advance for civil rights. It's a celebrated ruling. It's when America got things right regarding public education. That's true. They did. It's also, apparently, the lesser-known landmark case. It's lesser known that it had a crippling impact on black male teachers. This is the claim that is being made by quote-unquote experts. It's really one expert that they quote in this particular article. It's amazing to me. I would call this a diabolical lie, that when you see everything through the lens of race and you are going to go out there and claim that everything is racist, you end up with hot takes and stupidity like this one. It's freaking amazing. Quote, and they have to add the word white, massive resistance to the Brown decision, we see the roots of the black male educator shortage, not just a teacher shortage, but an educator shortage, says Leslie T. Fenwick, a doctor of educational something or other, in her new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, The Untold Story of Black Principals and Teacher Leadership. We see the purge of black male principals and teachers, and we're still living with that purge. I saw a picture of her. Maybe I'll throw one on the screen. Actually, I can do that right now. While we're talking, I'm going to throw this woman's picture on the screen, and you will also see that we are living with this purge. She probably is in my age bracket, if I had to guess. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say she's roughly in my age bracket. Here, we'll just throw her on here. There she is. This is the lady that they are quoting right there. Okay? Boom. Leslie T. Fenwick can't be much older than me. She might be younger than me. And she thinks that we are living with a shortage of black male principals and teachers because of Brown v. Board in 1954. She claims that the Southern strategy by white segregationalist politicians to define Brown aided the male teacher crisis, specifically the black male teacher crisis, and she's a professor of education policy, saying that white leaders feared the decision to integrate black educators, superintendents, principals, and teachers, coupled with integrating students, would loosen their control over the education policy and funding. And so that's why it's been an atom bomb, and that's why we don't have enough black teachers today. She goes on and describes it. She uses the term nearly decimated the black educator pipeline. It's funny. The word decimated actually means cut by 10%. It's a military term talking about significant losses in the field. I would imagine that it didn't nearly decimate. It probably more than decimated, if that's her claim, because she's saying this thing. But she doesn't even know how words work. She said, history's not dead. We're living with the aftermath of this atom bomb being Brown v. Board, folks. If everything is racist, you have to end up with these sort of ridiculous takes. And this, again, I think is an evil, evil lie. It's called single factor or single variable analysis. If everything is viewed through the lens of race, then you're inevitably going to come to even things that were moral goods and decisions that were basically taken from what? A Supreme Court decision deciding whether or not you could legally keep black students out of a school. Your take is that became a racist problem because it allowed the whites to unleash their racism. It was literally pushing against it. It's pretty incredible to see these sort of takes. But as I said, a diabolical lie is a lie that basically the devil convinces you that you're doing the right thing. There's a reason why the word diabolical means it means characteristic of the devil, very simply. And as we just said earlier this show, and I'm going to play it again.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
If you can believe that there is no devil, then you can actually believe that the things you are doing are not coming from the devil. That little voice in your head, you think that's something other than what it is. These are very, one of you just said, pride goes before the fall. Pride is the elevating yourself to the level of God, or getting rid of the concept of God and believing that you can do without it. And that leads you to a place where you think, oh my goodness, all my thoughts are great. My thoughts are so clean and so pure that I have come to this conclusion that it was race, that it was always about race, and that Brown v. Board was secretly an agenda of the white racists to be able to get rid of black educators. Maybe the breakdown of the value of what we consider in education and the fact that you had all these left-wing activists and progressive types that were trying to steal American values. Maybe black men just said, I'm not into that. It turns out that a lot of men in general are not into that. If you go look at any college of education, and we have changed what it requires. When I was a kid, I remember having professors, and I'll call them professors because they had PhDs or terminal degrees like lawyers in 5th grade. Now, I went to exceptional schools. My parents were really forward thinking on that and knowing that we needed good educations and that they couldn't trust a public school system, which was a waste of our time. But I had a guy with a PhD in mathematics teaching me math when I was in 5th grade. We covered set theory, which I didn't see again until I was a sophomore in college. And it was easy stuff. It was like, okay, got it. Okay, yeah, this is all logically consistent. I understand math. Why was he in that? Did he have to go get a teaching degree? No. He was a college professor that was kind of a weirdo, and he didn't want to teach college kids anymore, and he came and taught us. And he was weird as hell. He was one of the weirdest human beings that I can ever remember. I can't remember his name anymore. I do remember that my English teacher when I was in 5th grade was a guy named Mr. Leach, and he had a JD. He was a lawyer by trade, but he absolutely loved Christian allegory. And so he taught the Lord of the Rings to 5th graders as a Christian allegory, as an understanding and a view into Western civilization and the way that we look at the world, and explained all the pieces that were behind it. Did he have a teaching degree? I doubt it. He was an attorney. He was really smart. He was able to teach things. He had a gift for imparting knowledge and critical thinking. So that's what he came and did. Now you want everyone to have an education degree, primary education degree. Like, no, my wife does a way better job educating our kids than most teachers would. Does she have a teaching degree? No, she has a degree in counseling. She has a master's degree, and she studied English. You don't need a teaching degree to be an excellent teacher. And maybe that's the real problem here. But when you have single factor analysis, the diabolical lie that everything is racial, then you're going to see people run their campaigns on whether or not Biden is doing enough outreach to black people and whether or not we can get them to vote as a bloc. And then the second piece of it is looking out there and saying, everything is racial. It must be, because that's the way I think about the world. Yeah, you've elevated yourself to a really dangerous place. Have you not? Let's go to another little diabolical thing. The reason why they're having so many problems is because of this very simple fact. Is corporate greed the leading cause of inflation? Is it corporate greed? Is that what's causing inflation? Can we blame it on the big bad people that make all the things in this country work? Must be, right? It couldn't be that our monetary system is trying to run on monetary theory, that we have a guy who's the lead economic advisor to the president that doesn't even know how the system works. That couldn't be it. It couldn't be the fact that his advisors are not even freaking economists. They're social workers that wanted to be musicians. That couldn't be it. It must be corporate greed. It must be the very, very bad rich people. Corporate greed is the leading cause of inflation. Is it possible? They actually have a greed versus fear index because those are the two choices. It's like, do you hate your wife or are you just violent with her? It's like violence or hate are the only two options. Fear and greed are the only two things that could be driving the United States market. That's a really, really hot take. By the way, it's rated at a 59. Whatever the hell 59 is. I don't know what the scale is. This is one of the weirdest articles I've ever seen. Some progressives have frequently blamed corporate greed for fueling the high cost of living that Americans are fed up with. That's because they don't understand anything about how money works. The reason that inflation happens is because they've put more money in to the system. They put more money in and they're borrowing more money. And they are not creating any value out of it. They've diluted the supply of money. So this funny, amazing thing happens. The Biden administration has been talking about, can we just do like a supplement? Because Americans are suffering in their mortgages. They're not interested in buying houses. It's really driving our numbers down. So what if we did this? What if we gave you a $300 check, the same way we did the stimulus checks during COVID, which watered down our money because you gave out money for free that you didn't have and you didn't get it from anywhere. What if we gave you $300 a month to supplement your high mortgage costs? Single factor analysis, a diabolical lie. If you gave everybody $300 that owned a house, the cost of housing would go up by $300 on average, and worse in some places. You flood with government fake money and you just add more money to the supply, the value of the money goes down. It's a very simple supply and demand curve in this case. It's because they can't even look past the first value. It's like, well, I don't have enough money. What if we gave you money? What if we invented money to give you? What if we just gave you puka shells? Could we give you puka shells and call them money? Would that work? It's incredible. And where's that money coming from? It's coming from me and it's coming from you. I'm writing that check out so I can get that check back. The single least effective way of solving almost any problem is government, even when it's the only way. That's the only thing conservatives should be doing. Stop giving out free money. There's nothing free about it. Very, very simple. All right. I want to come to the most important piece of today's show, the biggest sort of situation with the diabolical lies. By the way, that last one, the story about greed versus fear, I would say that's a statistic, right? Mark Twain said, lies, damn lies, and statistics. Those are statistics. They don't even understand how the economy works, so they can't even use those. So that's kind of funny. Let me suggest one more sponsor. I actually finally got to put them through the wash. MyPillow.com/Kyle is where you can go to get the MyPillow discount from our promo code, KYLE. And yeah, I went and just tried them out. I bought 3 of the bath sheets. I had to wash them, my wife's policy that I've decided to engage in. And I just hung them up on the thing and I just washed my face with them this morning. And they're really good. Like, I wanted to not like them. I'm kind of a contrarian. Everyone's like, oh, they're the best pillows. I would be like, yeah, we'll see about that. They're actually really good. That's a really good terry cloth. Is it the best in the world? I don't know. It's rough in the way that it needs to be, but it's not like tearing your skin off. And it absorbed water, which is the goal of the towel. Look, it's not a very simple or very difficult technology to make it. I just want my towel to take water off from my skin. It does that pretty well. If you guys want to get your own bath sheets, which are quite large and they wash up very nicely. The colors they had, I have like a light blue version of it. It is mypillow.com/Kyle. Again, mypillow.com/Kyle. It's got the little logo on there. It says MyPillow on it, which I used to kind of like not like it, but I actually like the script of the MyPillow. I don't know why, it feels comforting to me. Very strange. Maybe it's just because I'm familiar with it. All right, let's get into the biggest piece of today's show. Again, remember, the biggest trick. Can we play it one more time? I'm going to just keep playing it.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Okay, if that's the case, this outrage is the devil screaming back. Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker rails against Pride Month, abortion, and diabolic lies told to women in a commencement speech. Well, he said a lot of things in there. One of the things he said is, do not mistake, our kindness for weakness is essentially the statement. He said, I think he said, charity for cowardice. Those were the problems he had. But I've always heard it kindness for weakness. He had an outstanding speech and a courageous speech in a lot of ways because he faces being canceled. And he's basically embraced the same thing that the Suspendables do. And we'll see if we can get him on the program because I really want to chat with this guy. He said two things that were really important. Number one, he gave a message for men and what their role in society is. And number two, he gave a message for women and what their role in society is. As he sees it, it's his job to say what he wants. Now, he was at a Catholic university. This was at Benedictine College where he gave this commencement speech. It has spawned all kinds of wild videos. People have all this sort of like spliced in Handmaid's Tale bullshit. There's no other way to call it. That is the Swifties are out there getting upset. These are people who like Taylor Swift, and he quoted the song a little bit and made some points. This is something so funny to me. You're so mad about a man saying something that has basically been the case for all of Western society for 2,000 plus years. And you're upset at him for just saying simple things. Now, I'm also going to put this in your head because I've seen this in a meme, but it's worth knowing. He's a traditional Latin Mass going Catholic. He likes the Latin Mass. Specifically, he talks about a little bit why. He thinks that's where you give glory to God, that God has a particular way that he wants to be worshiped. If you follow the Old Testament, you know that there are some pretty specific prescriptions. But here's the thing that I think is so interesting about it. Even Hollywood, the purveyor of sometimes lies, sometimes diabolical lies. Hollywood even knows that the devil is scared of the Latin Mass. Think about every single exorcism scene you've ever seen in a Hollywood depiction. These are not people who necessarily love Catholicism. They just know what evil runs from. And it runs from Latin-speaking Catholic priests. Can we just agree that every depiction you've ever seen of casting out demons looked a lot like that? And it's pretty interesting to me. I'm going to play some of his speech. This is his opening. I think it's fantastic. He delivers a message that needs to be heard right now. Yeah, somebody just said the power of Christ compels you. Yes, the power of Christ compels you. But all the prayers are always done in Latin, are they not? All right, listen to this opening of the speech. Again, Kansas City Chief kicker Harrison Butker giving his opening at Benedictine College.
It is only in the past few years that I have grown encouraged to speak more boldly and directly, because as I mentioned earlier, I have leaned into my vocation as a husband and father, and as a man. To the gentleman here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the US, and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. I speak from experience as an introvert who now finds myself as an amateur public speaker and an entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be when I received my industrial engineering degree. The road ahead is bright. Things are changing, society is shifting, and people, young and old, are embracing tradition. Not only has it been my vocation that has helped me and those closest to me, but not surprising to many of you, should be my outspoken embrace of the traditional Latin Mass. I've been very vocal in my love and devotion to the TLM and its necessity for our lives. But what I think gets misunderstood is that people who attend the TLM do so out of pride or preference. I can speak to my own experience, but for most people I have come across within these communities, this simply is not true. I do not attend the TLM because I think I am better than others, or for the smells and bells, or even for the love of Latin. I attend the TLM because I believe, just as the God of the Old Testament was pretty particular in how he wanted to be worshiped, the same holds true for us today. It is through the TLM that I encountered order and began to pursue it in my own life.
What a powerful message. Embrace masculinity. Society needs it. A lack of order is the fault of men, it turns out. Men not holding the line. There's supposed to be a left and a right boundary. The right being a traditional masculine, the left being traditional feminine. We're supposed to be given carrot and stick. That's the way that we all operate. It doesn't matter what paradigm you look at. This is the way that it's always been. There's got to be guardrails. There's got to be sort of what we used to call the love, and sometimes there's the shove. And men, the purview of violence is almost exclusively the purview of men. Anybody who's ever been involved in any kind of violence knows that. Women do not fare well in that environment. What an awesome message. But he doesn't stop there, because the real diabolical lie is telling women that they're supposed to compete with men on men's territory. It is the root, I believe, of all the things that we keep seeing. We're seeing men step into women's spaces like locker rooms. We're seeing men competing with women on the sports fields. There's nothing wrong with women having women's sports. Are they going to compete at the same level as men? No, they're not. Look, I swam at a very high level for the average person. When I got into the military, I was the best swimmer who wasn't a scholarship swimmer. All the scholarship swimmers basically got knocked out because they couldn't run or they couldn't carry heavy weight and move around. I was the exception to that. I had been a swimmer at the high school state level. I would have never made it in college except maybe like a D2 school or something less than a D3. I couldn't have made it in the real world, in the swimming world, where the real people were. And I was faster than all the guys and all the girls that were not real swimmers. The real female swimmers were faster than me. The men swimmers destroyed them. It wasn't even fair. You can't put them in the same thing. There's a reason why Leah Thomas went from being mediocre to being exceptional when it comes to stepping into that space. You can't have them compete with that. And a lot of that has been, it's the pervasive lie that has been sold, even since I was a kid. Anything you can do, I can do better. You know, this female are going to be able to lift things. The G.I. Jane attitude, where we had women go into buds and other crap. There's a great video that my wife showed me accidentally of some soft training where they were doing flooded mask flutter kicks, which I've done a lot of. I spent a lot of time on my back with a mask full of water, a high volume dive mask, doing flutter kicks with fins on, getting a hose in my mouth, just getting completely destroyed. And they showed like men and they showed women, and the woman stands up and she starts puking. She quits right away. That's fine. I don't want her to do that. I don't want her to have to do that. And the cross-section of women that can and the women that will is so small. The women that can do the kind of stuff that I did when I was in the military training, they are generally speaking like professional athletes at the professional level against women. I couldn't be a professional athlete, but they can against women. He says something very important here. And he's talking about vocations. Vocations comes from the Latin calling. You know, vocation is a calling, but it comes from the Latin verb vocare, if my memory serves, to call, which is to say that you are fulfilling something that God calls you to do. Listen to this little vocation piece. It's really important. And it is a pervasive lie that I think has been put on women. It's really hard to shake. My wife fought it very hard coming from a place in Brooklyn where she was raised around people that had very left-wing ideas, coming out of a left-wing, indoctrination program of university and a master's degree that is very left-leaning. It's selling a lie. And that lie is that for women to be good and be worthy and to be of value, they have to compete with men on men's terms. And by the way, the only way they do that is subjugating other women to outsource raising of children if they want to, quote unquote, have it all. This is a very important little speech here, so I'm going to toss this up.
Ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
They get it. And what you're hearing in the background are children crying out, because that's pretty much what it's about. I used to always have this sense that men are supposed to tame nature and women are supposed to tame men, because otherwise we are like unruly wild animals. I would suggest to you, we're going to talk about one more topic here that I think is important, that there are people in our federal government that have done evil, like really evil stuff to people that I care about. Guys like Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend have suffered it. My friend Phil, Marcus Allen, have all been at the hand of like really evil things. And but for my wife, those people would be in mortal danger, because I would have no other reason not to. Because I would be perfectly comfortable without having other skin in the game, without having 4 children that rely on me. Those people would be in bad shape. Because what else are men doing? What else are we going to throw it? Am I going to save it for something else? No. Women keep us in check. They remind us that there are more than one priority and there are better things. And also she reminds me that's not what God wants of me, which is really important, because I kind of have a lot of violent tendencies in my head, like so many of you that served in the military, that served in law enforcement. These are people that have professionally signed up to do violence on behalf of the state because we believe that the state is actually going to do something righteous. That doesn't mean that once we leave that job that we don't still have that instinct or capability. Most of us have it pretty much in spades. I know some of you in the chat out there know exactly what I'm talking about. That instinct and that need, or that want to create justice by being an agent of vengeance. And we're not called to do that. And women remind us of that in a big and important way. There is nothing more important than that, because it keeps the world turning, lest we just break down into tribal violence all the time. Even interestingly enough, Donald Trump kind of knows how important this stuff is too. He doesn't always talk about this specifically, but he knows that there's something wrong with this administration that's pushed it out there, that women and men are supposed to be competing on the same field. He knows that's not right. Donald Trump, in many ways, is a regular guy with values that go back maybe 40 or 50 years. And listen to this. This is him talking about Title IX and getting rid of it. The Title IX changes that the Biden administration has gotten involved in. What have they said? They said that men and women should be able to use the same locker rooms, that they're essentially equal and equivalent. This is nonsense. This is a lie. And it's a diabolical lie. Donald Trump is even pushing back against this.
What would you do
on day one? Don't forget that was done as an order from the president. That came down as an executive order, and we're going to change it on day one. It's going to be changed. We're going to end it. That's right. Boys can go into girls' locker rooms. The whole thing is crazy. Look, it's like men playing in women's sports. It's like open borders for the world to come in, send all their prisoners. We'll take as many as you can give us. Send all their people from mental institutions. No, we'll get that changed. Tell your people not to worry about it. It'll be signed on day one.
All right. Should we not worry about it? Yes, of course we should worry about it. But what we should remember is there are objective truths. There are things that are right and there are things that are wrong. And our country sorely needs boundaries right now because it has lost the masculine. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what Donald Trump represents to people. I don't agree with everything the guy says. You guys get my caveat all the time. But he does represent a masculine thing. He commits to his thing and he does it. He also is malleable because, like all of us, he's got people in his ear. In my case, my brain trust is people like the Suspendables and my wife. And when they tell me things in my ear, they go, hey, my dad, my mom, they whisper things. They go, this is not a good take. This is why you should soften. This is why you should harden on this, whatever it may be. We need to actually have those people in our, but we also have to have the courage of stepping out and going, this is my decision and I'm taking it and I'm taking on all the good and the bad that comes with it. I used to tell that to my lieutenants because I was an enlisted guy. I was 27 to 31 years old as an E3. Any of you know, I was an airman, first class in the Air Force the entire time. I couldn't get a promotion because of the way that I was in my training. And I had 21, 22-year-old lieutenants, second and first lieutenants, young captains like in their early 20s, which I had almost a decade more life experience than half the time. And so I would tell them, I will give you counsel. I will give you advice. I will give you perspective. I will share with you what I think the right answer is so that you have it. But at the end of the day, it's your decision because you are the officer. And in the same way, many men need to remember that they can take all the advice in the world, but you can't run away from the responsibilities of having to make a decision. Fight, flight, or freeze are the three options. Most people choose freeze because they haven't prepared themselves. You know, we like to talk about prepare or repair on the show. You prepare yourself mentally so you don't have to repair from non-decisions. Actual decisions are far easier to handle. It's like, oh, I made the bad choice. I can correct that. Making no choice is almost always the worst thing. And our country has made no choice for a long time. And I think that's what he's talking about being bold and being masculine. Whatever decision it is, own it and take responsibility for it. That is being a man. That is being a woman. It's being an adult and knowing exactly where your role is. Sometimes we are the enlisted. Sometimes we are the officer in our own lives, in our own families, in our own little schemes surrounded by the types of friends we have. We all have different roles that we need to know what our role is in that thing. And men and women have different ones. It's so simple and obvious. It's written in the Bible, but it's also been true for every society and every part of human history. Why don't we just kind of remember that? All right, now you want to talk about something about injustice, where I'm going to end up here because this thing drives me nuts. Injustice is the arc of the world in many ways when we abandon godly principles. This is a story written up by the Management Advisory Memorandum. It's 24067, very government-y. It's coming from the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General. This is Michael Horowitz. The notification of concerns regarding, this is such a lame title, notification of concerns regarding the Department of Justice compliance with whistleblower protections for employees with a security clearance. This is the Suspendables complaint, for whatever it's worth. This is our complaint. None of us were interviewed for this. That should also be pointed out right up front. It says the purpose of this memorandum is to advise you of the concerns of the Justice Department, or DOJ, the Office of the Inspector General, has identified regarding the department's compliance with 50 USC 3354 and the DNI's Executive Agent Directive 9, SEAD 9, which provide protections for federal employees who allege their security clearance has been suspended, revoked, or denied in retaliation for making a protected disclosure. That's a whistleblower complaint. Protected disclosure and whistleblower complaint are the same thing. This concern came to our attention in connection with the OIG's assessment of complaints the OIG received from employees of a DOJ component, that's the FBI in this case, alleging that their security clearances were suspended in retaliation for protected whistleblowing activity. I'm going to read to you, essentially, that they said, specifically, the DOJ has a real issue here because they don't do anything about it. If a security concern is raised by a department employee, the allegation is referred to the relevant component's security division, which has the authority to immediately suspend the employee's security clearance and initiate a security investigation into whether the employee's security clearance should be revoked or reinstated. And they don't have a time limit on it. They can do it as long as they want, which is what they've done. This entire 7-page, is it 7 pages? Yeah, 7-page document. It's 5 pages of actual text. The 5 pages of actual text essentially say, we validate every single thing that the Suspendables said, that they are not getting a fair shake on it, that that there is no way that anybody can review it. And by the way, we recommend that if they pull the top secret clearance, this is the actual quote that every single one of us has gotten. Me, Garrett, Steve, Phil, Marcus Allen, several other you don't know. It has been a long-standing essential condition of the employment that employees of the FBI are able to obtain and maintain a top secret security clearance. And so the FBI just revokes it. They say, well, one of the fundamental underlying conditions of your employment is no longer met. You no longer get to work here. You can work here. You just can't get paid and actually do the job. So you can be an employee, but don't tell anybody you're an employee. And you can, you can't get another job unless you quit. Somebody said, what if there was a way to solve this problem, or if they had a policy for it? They do. It's called F off and die. That's what they would call it. That's what I would call it. My attorney referred to it as wither on the vine until you resign. This is a real problem, and nothing is being done about it. So when you get to the bottom of it, Jim Jordan tweeted this out yesterday to no effect. He was like, oh my God. It's like everything we told you was real. Here's what they actually came up to in their conclusions. We asked the FBI for data on the length of employee security clearance suspensions, regardless of whether the employee has raised a retaliation allegation. The data provided that the FBI indicated that in the past 5 years, 106 employees had their clearances suspended for 6 months or longer. I'm one of those. So is Steve. So is Garrett. And of these 106 employees, the average time between suspension and a decision to either revoke or reinstate the clearance was 527 days, 17.5 months. That doesn't include if they wanted to say, hey, I'm being retaliated against. Can you give me the information that you used to make your decision? Then it takes weeks or months later. And they were like, it's really a problem because everybody should be able to contest it at the 1-year mark. They think that you should be able to go 1 year without pay. This is complete government bullshit. The person who is CC'd on this is the Associate Deputy Attorney General from the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. They said their recommendations are as follows. Ensure there's a process for employees to file a retaliation claim with OIG when the security clearance for suspension lasts more than a year. Really? Because you're unpaid for a flippin' year and they think that's acceptable? These people are bullshit. They are not doing their job. This is a diabolical lie as well, that there is government oversight and somehow they're going to go ahead and the government is going to be able to rein in the government. Give me a flippin' break. Ensure that employees are notified in writing that they have a right to file after the 1 year mark. Gross. Ensure that employees who have had their security clearance suspended, revoked, denied, and have made a retaliation claim have an opportunity to extend practical and retain their government employee status during these investigations. There is no way to do that unless they're being paid and they're in a paid leave status indefinitely, which, by the way, the government can afford. They're trying to write money up out of nowhere. Put in place a process to review the monthly reports that DOJ has in compliance with this. So any sort of suspension that exceeds 90 days, none of this makes a difference for us. None of it. And further, it says the OIG recommends the department direct each component, that's like FBI, ATF, DEA, etc., to ensure that their internal policies, directives, and procedures comply with the revisions of the DOJ instruction 17,000.00.01, section 3354, and the whatever directive number 9. And the department also concurs with these sort of recommendations. So they're going to basically paper it away. Our Congress has done jack and shit for us. I'm just so pissed about how sad this is. This stuff makes people like Garrett O'Boyle, like it makes their blood boil because he's still in this fight. Marcus Allen's still in it. I had to resign because after 14 months or 15 months without pay in an 18-month period, that was enough for me, it turned out, that I was going to start doing something else and speak publicly. They would have fired me for what I'm doing here anyway. They gave me paperwork saying they were going to fire me for doing a podcast, for talking about the things that I brought and blew the whistle on, and government did, our government never did anything to help us. Our government being those members of Congress. This is garbage, people. This is a diabolical lie. It's just trying to spin it long enough that you forget about it. Well, we're not going anywhere, and we're not forgetting about it. So that is that for the day. All right, I got a little bit of a high note talking about traditional masculinity. It doesn't always have to look good. It doesn't always have to make sense to you, but somebody's got to do hard things just because they're hard. And you heard Butcher say that earlier. Do hard things. Do difficult things simply because they are. Sometimes that pays off because you might be the weirdo that nobody knows that you have a gift for grabbing alligators out of the street, but it wasn't going to be the cops, and it's sure as hell not going to be some lady. It's going to be some redneck looking guy from Florida. The Florida man with no shoes on, wearing cutoff jeans and a denim vest is going to be the guy who's going to catch this big bug that's running around here, this freaking dinosaur looking monster running around on the roadway. I'm just saying, it might be toxic to some people, but this is what heroes look like even when they're not the hero we need every day. Check this guy out. Look at those cops. They're like, dude, I do not want to be that dude. You got a dude wearing a plaid shirt with no sleeves. He's wearing cut off. He's barefoot, and he walks off with an alligator that looks like it's at least 7 feet long, maybe longer. That thing is not light. Florida man for the win, as you said in the chat, Joe. Correct. Florida man for the win. But the key part there was that he was being a man. He just jumped on top of an alligator because that's what sometimes you got to do. Sometimes you got to be the guy who tackles that. Take on something weird. All right. That's the show for today. I really appreciate all of you guys being here. I'm going to share it with you a 5-star review out of our chat to encourage you to come to rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. This one's from Grexy. I know you're out there. Great show, Kyle. Once again, God bless you and yours. Prayers. 5 stars. Here's your 5 stars. Keep the faith. Remember that he that is in thee is much greater than the he that is in the world. I paraphrase that. We appreciate it. Grexy, thanks for the review. Thanks for being in the chat. Thanks to all of you who have been in the chat. And you guys, you can always support our program by supporting our sponsors and making sure that you are following us on the places that you are seeing us, whether it be here on X, whether it be on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, or whether it be youtube.com/Kyle Seraphin. If you all are bored and you want to send me some weird thoughts, do so at kyleseraphin.com to contact me. Questions, comments, sarcastic remarks. I appreciate the sarcastic remarks more than anything else, just so you guys know. Do not send me your request for me to do investigations. I'm not trying to do those right now, and support our sponsors. You're seeing them run across the screen. We'll see you again tomorrow. This has been a little bit of a weird Wednesday, but I think more importantly, it was a discussion of something so important one last little time, because it would be unfair to leave without it.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Remember, he's out there. He's real. And we will see you again tomorrow. God bless you. See you in the morning.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.